Kia ora koutou. Welcome to Shared Lunch. I'm Garth Bray and today I'm at Halter. Now Halter is not a name that you will see on the NZX, but it is a name that's on the lips of people who follow startups, especially after its news that it cited a valuation of $1 billion in its latest capital raise.
I think it's validation for the team and for the farmers that believed in us and those things. It's just a point on the journey.
A unicorn status for Kiwi agritech. What's the deal there?
The Series D for us is a company called Bond. They spun out of Kleiner Perkins, so one of the biggest, about 10 years ago, and have invested in some of the biggest startup scale-ups tech companies of the past 10 years. We are so excited about what we're building here, the feedback we get from farmers. We're building something really special.
Let's go find out. But first, as always, some important information you always need to keep in mind when investing.
Investing involves risk. You might lose the money you start with. We recommend talking to a licensed financial advisor. We also recommend reading product disclosure documents before deciding to invest. Everything you're about to see and hear is current at the time of recording.
Well, I'm inside here at Halter with Andrew Fraser, who is the president of Halter, which is just a very large and ostentatious title. We'll get into what that means.
Super.
But tell me about what we're seeing here. This is the evolution of the collar that this business is based on, right?
Yeah, so we've got the kind of 5 of our iterations of the Halter collar. It all started with a Sistema lunchbox, a good Kiwi product, of course, and essentially one controller for one cow. And you can see the evolutions through the ages. Our first true collar here, our first commercial collar there, which was on our first 10,000 cows or so. Our P4 collar, which is the one that I'm holding here today as well. And then the next generation as well, the P5, just been launched in the last couple of months as well. So really the history of the Halter collar altogether.
9 years, all in one spot.
Yeah.
Let's hear all about it upstairs.
Great, looking forward to it.
So Andrew Fraser, your title at Halter is president.
Yes.
Which sounds a little grandiose. Do you want to tell me all about that? Is that like a real pitch to the US market?
Yeah, it is a fun title to say with a straight face. Yes, look, at the heart of it, it's quite a common title in the US tech space in particular. Often what it means, which it is in this case as well, is I look after the broader commercial side of the business. So marketing, sales, our global operations, so our Australian teams, our US teams, support, success, those types of things. I run the commercial side. Craig, our founder CEO, much more focused on the product and engineering side of the business.
So he's trying to make the tech work and you're trying to make it pay.
Yes, great way of putting it. Now, he's bloody good at both sides of that, to be fair, but no, it's a good team effort from us and the exec as well.
And you joined Halter in the last year or so, right?
Yes, joined last June, so just past my 1 year anniversary at Halter.
Tell me about the t-shirts.
Yeah, so big tradition here is once you pass the 1 year mark, you get a very beautiful Halter sweater, which has got the Halter sign and also your number on it. So I was very fortunate to be Halter 1 year maker number 200 on the dot.
And I guess the plan is to double that number in the next little while, right?
Yes, yeah, we're in big growth mode right now. We've been building and growing really well, and I think with this Series D, that enables us to continue to build more product to support our farmers, improve that, build our customer side of the org as well to make sure that we are supporting and keeping our farmer and rancher welfare at the heart of everything that we do too, and really invest in both our core market of New Zealand, but then also more out in Australia and the US as well.
Need to bring everybody in here and make sure A, they know what a Series D is, and B, they know exactly what Halter does. So just
I might have jumped up there, sorry,
mate.
Have
jumped in there, but that's good. But so Series D, you're a company that's privately held, right?
Yes.
And so that's a little something unusual for sharesies to be talking to, because there's no immediately investable opportunity for retail investors. It's all through kind of the wholesale side of things, and that's a pretty discrete market, yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But so you've effectively, in a series of raises, I think now you're up to about $289 million worth of capital that have been raised for the business?
Yeah, that sounds about right. And so the way that it's kind of worked is as at various milestones throughout the Halter history, there have been these raises with investors, and I'd say especially a lot of those driven by some New Zealand investors, for example, Icehouse being a big driver of that. And this is our fourth of those, so ABCD. And that's what we celebrated. I think last week it was, in terms of that new, I guess, influx of capital and belief in what we're doing as well.
And with that, so 165 million New Zealand raised in that round.
Yes.
You don't normally go to an E round, do you?
Look, never say never. And I'd say like Airwallex is an interesting example. They've got a Kiwi co-founder. They just closed their Series F. So you can still keep going. It's really up to what you need, how you're driving, and various growth metrics and things around that. But yeah, there's no real limit to the series that you get to, and I think that Airwallex one is a cool example of Aussie and Kiwi co-founders doing bloody good work at the global tech stage as well.
So the tech behind Halter, can you tell us a little bit about what is the problem you're trying to solve and what does it do?
Halter, at its heart, I'd say is an operating system for your farm, and the primary way that we do that is through a collar for cows. It helps you with virtual fencing and virtual herding. So instead of seeing fences, now you're hearing fences if you're a cow. So what it means is you can draw the paddock or the area that you want your cows kept, and the collar will kind of keep them in that. The virtual herding side of things is similar to that, but it actually moves your cows as well. So if you're a dairy farmer, the way that it works is you say, hey, I want my cows at the dairy shed at 4:30 a.m. to start the milking, and they will be there waiting for you when you arrive. And as I said, that all happens kind of via sound and vibration. We also help you grow and graze more pasture too. So because of how you can move the cows and keep the cows and our pasture metrics that we supply and things as well, we help you grow and graze more grass, which means that you either get more milk production, so they're eating more grass, they're making more milk, or on the beef side of things, they're eating more grass, so they are getting fatter, which you get money from as well. Other things the collar can do is, heat detection, so it helps with the reproduction side of things, the health side. So we give early warning to say, hey, you might have a lame cow or a sick cow, and a lot of other things from there. But at the heart of it, it really is that kind of operating system for cows.
I guess people probably don't understand quite how complicated and how many decisions that a farmer in their business has to make, right? That they're literally trying to get very, very fine judgments out of the soil, the ground, the pasture, the weather conditions, the condition of whatever mob or herd that they're running. All of that is pretty tricky. So, how do they do it without this?
Yeah. Oh, look, I'd say as a starting point, I think farmers are remarkable folks, and the care that they universally have for their land and for their animals is amazing to see. And maybe if I slightly diverge, and then I promise I'll come back and answer the question. Like I didn't grow up on a farm, but my cousin, he's my best mate. He's a dairy farmer, and so kind of put myself through university, milking with him in the uni holidays, and even in my first job, if I had a pretty tough week, I'd go down and milk with him, and that was kind of my happy place. And so I'd been able to see firsthand how hard farmers are working and how much they are thinking about this, right? So right now they might have a big whiteboard in their cow shed measuring their round length, or they're going out with a plate meter which measures their grass growth after every feed and before every feed to kind of understand these things. Or they're spending hours a day with reels and standards, so like pigtails and electric wire to put up around their farm to kind of get the optimal amount of grass in each break for each mob of cows. So incredibly laborious. And I like to think that no one goes into farming to follow cows behind on a 4x4 or to put up reels. They go there to get the most out of their grass, or to get the most milk production, or to spend more time with their animals and their land. And so we really enable that in a much quicker more accurate way via our app, which is kind of part of that whole system as well.
And I guess, so it's not just a device, but then obviously it's a series of subscriptions and data that sit behind it that are possibly where some of the value is coming from, yeah?
Yeah.
Both for you and for them.
Spot on. And I'd say that it's the reason I call it as an operating system is it really is a hardware plus software solution for the farmer. And so the app, it's been built to be as easy to use for farmers as possible. We've got one of my favorite farmers, Pete Morgan, his 93-year-old mum sits there at home and kind of is using the app and having a look at where all the cows are. The flip side of it is we've got a lot of farms. There's a guy, Ross Minson in Canterbury, his daughter's at boarding school, and she's calling him every night to be like, what's happening with this cow? Or why is this cow at a break? And I love it. And it really is that kind of enabler for all generations of farmers to be able to kind of get a view of their farm really quickly and then make really strong decisions around productivity and sustainability really easily as well.
Because it's probably not replacing actually being on the land, walking around, taking a look at the conditions yourself, yeah?
Absolutely. And I'd say, great farmers are on the farm more with Halter, right? So they are, when they're coaching their farm managers or farm workers, they are, instead of having to rush to do everything and it's all very much like do this, then do that, then do that, you can actually step back. And I think you can actually take back control of farming as well. So they're loving life. They're getting back on farm. We've heard from a number of farmers that it's brought that kind of joy back to farming for them. Another thing that I'd say we've seen here in farming in New Zealand in general is a shift of young people away from farming as a career, because it's tough hours, right? It's early starts, it's hard work. And I think this is really, we're seeing much more and more younger people come into this. We hear a lot of stories about, leaving a farm and wanting to work on other Halter farms, so it's kind of it's a retention tool in the industry as well. And that's all because, as I say, it takes those jobs that aren't value-adding jobs away, and it replaces it with a great toolkit that brings you closer to the land and closer to your animals.
I'm thinking about that example you gave before about the young woman talking to her dad. I'd imagine that for a lot of farmers, that's great to hear. A lot of them are probably watching their kids saying, I'm not interested remotely in taking on millions, tens of millions of dollars worth of debt to try and run this place. And I don't know, maybe I'm just not that familiar with all of the stuff that you're doing on farm.
Yeah. So
the app is a way to try and give them another doorway into that.
Spot on. Yeah. And I think that's, look, I reckon I'm the luckiest person at Halter. I'm on the road at least every second week right now, every week with our teams on farm and just listening to our farmers and their stories. And, for some, it's like what brought them into Halter. For some, it's what keeps them at Halter. For others, it's, potential new business to say what Halter could mean for them. And I do think that succession piece is a big one for a lot of farmers, in terms of bringing that next generation on, giving them the tools and the excitement about what it looks like. For some, it's, extending farming. I was with a lovely couple down in the Bay of Plenty recently who were in their 60s, and they were like, we love farming, but we know that, when I've got to get up on a step ladder to do my, the reproduction side of business, and I don't like doing it at this age. And so this will keep us in farming for another 5 years. And I just, it's pretty special being able to get out and hear those stories for an industry that's so important, as a Kiwi to New Zealand, pretty special to kind of hear how Halter can kind of make that improvement in people's lives.
What sort of penetration have you got then into New Zealand? Obviously, it's the main market, it's the home market. Where are you at?
Look, what I'd say is we're just getting started. In certain communities, in certain kind of places, we've got, 1 in every 3 farms, for example. In others, it's a lot earlier, a lot earlier stage. And we're really seeing it is that kind of community growth almost, is what we're seeing. So farmers trust and believe in other farmers. And so what you start to see is, you get a few Halter farms then the next door neighbor kind of comes over, has a bit of a look and sees what the story is and gets a bit excited. And then you kind of get that farm and then that farm. And so there's this big almost network effect there of farms seeing the product, seeing the impact, seeing, the mum and dad on the netball courts on the Saturday, whereas previously you'd only ever have one parent, and now they can both get off farm, or going to Fiji for a week for their first holiday in years because they can still monitor. So they've still got that trust, but then their farm manager can or farm workers can do the work. And that's our biggest thing. So what we'd see is, in areas where we've got that minimum penetration, where we start to see that's where you really get that network effect and get that really rapid growth that we've been seeing.
Would you expect to see the same sort of thing in the US though? Much bigger market, very, very different situation, different farming systems, different culture. How is it going to go there?
It's going really well so far. At the heart of it, it's a universal truth, I think, that farmers and ranchers, over there we use the term ranchers, farmers are a very different thing over there. Farmers and ranchers care for their land, care for their animals as a starting point. And so at the heart, we still see that. I have been in many conversations with US ranchers on the ground over there, and they actually go very similarly to a New Zealand farmer just from a few years ago. So the understanding of the product is still in its infancy. It's not like here where we're at field days a few weeks ago. Every farmer that came into the tent knew what Halter was, knew a little bit about it, knew what kind of value it could provide. We're not at that stage yet in the US. There's still that educational piece, educational phase to it. The other thing about the US, which I found interesting, is we're pretty much selling to beef farms only. Something like 95% of US dairy is not pasture-based. So we're a pasture-based company. We help cows on grass. 95% of cows in the dairy industry in the US are not on grass. They're in barns or feedlots. And so that's not really our target market. Over there, it's really those classical cows on the range. That's who we're dealing with. That kind of the cattle side of things there. So a few differences there, but on the whole, we're actually seeing that, a conversation in the US is not so dissimilar to a conversation in New Zealand.
But there'd be a lot of feedlot feeding out for those beef cattle as well, right? So I wonder, how big is the market there, given that pasture doesn't have the same kind of role in the US? How big is that total addressable market?
It's a big one. So I'd say for the US, it's kind of that $1.5–2 billion of total addressable market. So maybe 1.5, double New Zealand. That's why we are in a very privileged, good position here in New Zealand with our brilliant pasture-based farmers and, on the dairy side and the beef side of things, that, we are a startup that was able to build our product in a really, really big, advanced market. Like I'd say New Zealand farmers are the best farmers in the world in many respects, and when it comes to pasture-based farming, and it's a really, really big market. So we were lucky we could grow here, we could test our product here, and it's not puny or irrelevant compared to the rest of the world. So New Zealand, core market. But yeah, US beef, it is big. What I would say is, yes, there can be some feedlot finishing. I'm getting really into the farming minutiae, so bear with me. You can get some feedlot finishing. So a cow might live, 95% of their life on grass and then finish at a feedlot. But we're still working with it during that majority of life, out on the ranges, out on the prairies, really extensive beef farms. That's really the core of what we're doing over there in the US.
Does the technology perform the same on the ground there that it would here?
Yeah, it's the same collar. So we use the same collar on a cow, regardless of if it's New Zealand, Australia, the US, beef, dairy, it's all the same. So at the heart of it, the hardware is the same, software largely the same. They use different language for certain things, farmers, ranchers, paddocks, pastures, all of those things. So there's a few little tweaks there, but for the most part, it's all the exact same piece. I'd say the big difference is there, like I was on a ranch in Wyoming recently, which was 100,000 hectares. Now, a typical dairy farm in the Waikato is maybe 100 hectares. So, 1,000-fold difference in size. But on the whole, the product's still doing the same thing. We're still supporting pasture-based animals. You might go at it a slightly different manner, but at the heart, it's quite nice that it's all that same piece.
There are other countries in the world where pasture is a big deal, like Ireland is one example. Big dairy industry, very similar to New Zealand. Where's that on the list?
Yeah, There are some fantastic other markets that I think we'll get to one day. I know it's a bit of a cheesy answer, but there's a lot of cows in New Zealand, Australia, and the US, and so that's very much our priority right now. Is doing a really, really good job in those three markets, and then yes, other markets will come. But yeah, we've still got a long way to go in those three markets to make it really good for our farmers and for our customers. So yeah,
I'm just trying to understand a little bit as well, like most people, what it means as a company that's a startup to reach a point where you can say you're worth $1 billion. That's kind of a big moment for a startup, right? Unicorn status, I think, is what we call it.
Yeah.
How do you put some confidence around that number?
Yeah. I would say there's probably the internal answer is that for us, it's an exciting thing. I think it's validation for the team and for the farmers that believed in us and those things. It's just a point on the journey, right? Like, we are so excited about what we're building here, the feedback we get from farmers. Like, the warehouse that I'm looking at right now, like we're building something really special. That's what drives us. This is, as I said, it's exciting, it's cool, it's validation for some folks, but really it's just a milestone in our journey, and we can't wait to keep building really cool stuff. And that's I'd say the priority of everybody that you chat to here at Halter as well.
I guess the question there was around, so you've got a company here which you're telling people is worth $1 billion. Who's saying that? What confidence are they expressing in that number?
At the heart of it, the investment, or the number that we're talking about here, does come from our investors. The company that's leading this the Series D for us is a company called Bond. So US VC company. They spun out of Kleiner Perkins, so one of the biggest, about 10 years ago, and have invested in some of the biggest startup, scale-ups, tech companies of the past 10 years.
Name checking like Airbnb, Canva, a couple of other ones I can probably think about if I check my notes.
Yeah, spot on. So they've been there, done that with some pretty special tech companies. That's one of the things that drew them to us was their pretty special history in terms of execution and growth of those companies. But I think the flip of that is when they look at us, our factor is our revenue and our revenue growth. That's a big way to kind of build that valuation. Our impact in the US market and how we've managed to grow that quickly and sustainably over there. But I think the other piece that really hit home for them, and they presented this back to us, was the impact that we do have on farmers and ranchers as well. I think they talked to over 20 farmers and ranchers across New Zealand, Australia, and the US as part of their due diligence in us and to understand us. The feedback was the way that farmers would only farm with Halter, or could only farm with Halter, who stay in farming too because of Halter. They passed on a story about a farmer here in New Zealand that had had Halter for 5 weeks. And they were saying that he just can't imagine farming without Halter. And I think it's those pieces that really hit home to them how important this product could be globally. And so you put all those together, and that's how they get to that valuation.
I guess we are seeing, farming's always been about adopting technology and moving things forward. Cheesies in particular, I think, has got a relationship running with Fonterra where it enables a lot of people that have shareholding there to manage that effectively. You've introduced some things as well, specifically for Fonterra farmers to try and make things work. What's going on there?
A few pieces here. One, we are using Halter on a few Fonterra farms. So that's going live kind of as we speak right now. And that's because I think Fonterra see the benefit in this, but they also want to be able to talk to their farmers about it as well. And we've also we've integrated all Fonterra milk production into the Halter app as well. So if you you can look at your app, you can see, during this period of time, our cows were grazing a little bit more, or grazing and ruminating a little bit more, and that's had a real impact for us in terms of our milk production. So it starts to tie a few of those pieces together, so that you can actually see both, the work that you do as a farmer, how that then impacts milk production, which then obviously how that impacts your revenue as well. So it's a great window into that. So again, you can kind of upskill as a farmer, you can get fairly real-time input into all of this, and you can tie the actions and the activities that you're doing with what it means for you from a bottom line perspective.
You talked about how, launching here in New Zealand was really, really important, obviously, for this because it's so well aligned with dairy and so on. I mean, is there something particular about this part of the world here in Australia? I read that we get a much greater kind of uptake in terms of startups from every dollar of venture capital money that's put in there compared to places like the US. Any ideas about why that might be?
Yeah, look, I think there is an element of good old Kiwi ingenuity. I've got a theory as well that we are kind of squirreled away at the bottom of the world here. It's 4 hours to get anywhere. It's longer to get even, further than Australia. And so that there is that kind of, innovation or desire for growth down here. I think there's a pretty cool ecosystem. For example, I was at Vend for a few years, and then we got acquired for about $500 million Kiwi. And you can see some Vend people in the market, helping in some of these companies now. You've seen the same for Trade Me and Zero and these other kind of these exciting pieces. So we're starting to see that grow. I also think that there's a good seed investment kind of community here as well. So helps get those startups up and running and kind of creating value and things as well. So I think New Zealand's a pretty special place in terms of a lot of those things. Going a bit off topic, I do think we should be doing more in that agritech space. That New Zealand is brilliant at agriculture, is brilliant at tech. There are some really cool ag tech startups here in New Zealand, but I'd love to see even more as well, because I think we are uniquely placed here to be building and driving some special stuff in that ag tech space.
While you've been telling me that, I checked my notes. 1.22 unicorns for every billion of VC cash invested in Australia, 1.08 in New Zealand, and in the US it's about 2/3 of a unicorn per billion.
Okay.
So I guess what I'm saying, it sounds like we're batting above the averages here.
Oh, cool. I hadn't heard that before. That's exciting. Yeah.
Is that just because people tend to stay in the network and keep investing? Because obviously this is the kind of capital we're talking about is not immediately available to retail investors at the moment. It's not something that anyone can just leap on an app and take a punt on. Can you see that changing?
Yeah, I think over time, I think that would be really great to see. I think that there is that, I liked how you put it, that kind of reinvestment here. One of our early investors and a real mentor to Craig was Sir Peter Beck, for example. He built something special. He reinvested it in terms of that. I'd say another one is, Sam Morgan from Trade Me built something special there, exited, and he was a really key part of my Vend story. He was one of the main investors. He was one of the most vocal folks on the board. And so I think there is, that's one of the most special elements. But yeah, I think in terms of retail investors, the more that folks are seeing or having access to startups, scale-ups, I think it's an exciting piece. And especially when you think about it from a Sharesies perspective and an investment perspective, having a pretty broad portfolio is good. So getting more and more stuff in that early stage is also, I think, a win for folks.
I guess there's a lot of risk attached to investments like that. So
absolutely,
that's why they sit in the sort of the wholesale side of things, where effectively it's a completely different system set up to identify those investments. Yeah.
Yep.
So where to from here? What's the next step?
Yeah. Look, as I said earlier, I think it's about growing and building. We've got a really exciting, cool product, and something I'm very proud of, and I think the team here is proud of, and our farmers are proud of. And so I'm just excited to get it on as many farms as possible, and as many farmers using it and helping us grow and improve it going forward as well. So that's the plan. It's still early. There's a long way to go, and so we've just got to keep being focused, keep doing bloody good stuff every day, and pretty pumped at what it can mean for us.
It sounds like you're telling me it's a little too soon to talk about things like an IPO, whether the company's headed to the NASDAQ, headed offshore to try and raise its capital from the public ultimately, or what sort of shape Halter winds up in.
Yeah, so look, we're very much a Kiwi company, and our headquarters here, all of our engineers are here, and that's going to be our focus for the next wee while. Down the road, who knows? Absolutely. Could consider that NASDAQ or IPO path. Could also go more the Stripe SpaceX route of staying private and profitable. But right now the focus is really on that building, continuing to make Halter as amazing as possible for our farmers and ranchers. And I think that's what excites everyone here on a day-to-day basis.
Andrew Fraser, Halter President. Gosh, I'm getting used to that title still. Thank you for your time.
Really appreciate it, mate. Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching, for listening. iHeart, Spotify, on the Sharesies app, YouTube, however you're doing it. We hope you enjoyed that. Let us know what you thought. Let us know what you are curious about, and we'll tackle that next time. Kumatu, that's us for now.